If all goes well, we should be live. Anything happening out there, Jamila?
Yeah, we're live.
Okay.
We're rolling.
Well, I hope, obviously a lot of people got the message that we're going to be doing something here today. And mostly to talk about a new product we have, but also just to answer questions that anybody might have. I guess I should give a little history first of how I kind of got into how I got into playing classical guitar on steel strings, because I really did enjoy playing classical guitar back in my early 20s and late teens with my friend John Dimmick. And but I also was kind of still a ragtime player at heart. Like I was making up arrangements of stuff like and so I would sometimes even do that with some classical pieces. Maybe I'll get back to that story, but if somebody wants to, if we have time, and I can tell you a horror story about a very famous musician who I didn't know was really famous at the time, named John Duart. We could revisit that. But so anyway, as time went on, I just felt that I had to kind of give up playing the nylon strings for a couple reasons. And some of it is that a lot of classical guitar players are really snobby. And if you don't live up to their standards, they well, anyway, there's a lot of bad feelings going on among many of them. But then as time went on, I really started getting back into loving these pieces. And feeling like they sound great on steel strings. So that's kind of what I've been doing for the last 10 or 15 years. I've still been back revisiting these pieces and really enjoying them. So we decided at Totally Guitars a while ago that I was just going to put up a whole bunch of classical pieces and including a guide to reading music. But we'll talk more about that a little bit later. And I guess most of you have probably seen the first little video that I put out that has or that talked about hand position. And this is the most important thing. And when I was 18 or so, there was a song I wanted to learn. It was The Last Steam Engine Train by John Fahey and Leo Kottke. And they had a part in there that I misheard what they were doing. And I thought he was trying to play the same string 3 times in a row really quickly with his thumb or an index finger, then thumb, and then a middle finger. And I just couldn't do it. I couldn't possibly get this to happen. And my friend John took one look at me and said, "Neil, you can't play with your hand like that." I said, "Why not?" He says, "Well, look, your thumb and your fingers are all getting in each other's way when you're trying to hit the same string. You need to turn your wrist and get your thumb away from your fingers so that they could be playing the same string and not be in each other's way." I thought, wait, I've been playing the guitar for 10 years and nobody ever told me that. Well, maybe when my teacher did when I was young, I'm not sure. But and somehow I got off on my own and lost track of it. Anyway, the point of that is I then adopted this classical position, and all of a sudden I could do this. And many years later, I went back and listened to Fahey's version, and he does this. What does he do? And even Kottke does this. Just really fast. So my mistake with trying to figure out something that I thought was what they were doing led me into good technique and good hand position. So that's the most important thing. Good hand position and holding the guitar properly. I think everybody's kind of got that. As you probably know, I play with the guitar on my right leg. I don't recommend it for everybody unless you can keep the guitar really well balanced like that and not supported at all with your left hand. That is essential, because if your left hand's playing it and all of a sudden you let go to a bar chord and it flies around, bad things happen. Okay, Jamila.
So we have some questions.
Okay, good.
One of them is exercises. Now this is taking it into finger picking, which I'm sure is associated with a little bit of classical guitar technique as well. Mm-hmm. So the question here is, can you recommend a few exercises to learn finger picking on the first, second, and third strings? And that comes to us from Jim Opalek.
Yeah, the best thing, I like to have people start with just arpeggios in the first place, like the House of the Rising Sun type thing, just to get used to using your fingers independently. But after that, you need to get used to alternating your thumb on 2 strings, like I'm playing an A minor here, alternating your thumb on the bass notes, and then playing fingers in between. So just practice 1 finger at a time. This is what I have people start with finger picking stuff. And then work on your 2nd finger. And then your 3rd finger. Then try to alternate the fingers. 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 1. So that's the way to kind of walk into that, because that's half of what's going on in the world of finger picking. The other half is playing notes in between bass notes. The other half is playing pinches, and then you work on patterns like what happens in either Blackbird or Dust in the Wind. So those are the exercises I like to have people get to before they start working on songs. But those are also great songs to work on.
Very cool. So let's drive it back into like the whole concept of classical guitar. I remember when we originally put this package together, you had mentioned that applying classical guitar techniques to a steel string instrument was almost taboo in itself. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Because I know I've seen your videos having nylon strings, which is what classical music is predominantly played on.
Yeah.
So can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. And I don't know if I have any videos playing nylon strings, but I might. I mean, I know I've got some videos playing the lute, but
I've caught a few.
Have you? Okay. The guitar is built completely differently. You know, it's got the strings are much lower tension in the first place. They're much wider apart. The nut width on a classical guitar is 2 inches, where mine, the steel string, is usually 1 3/4. Even if it's less, if you have a Martin Dreadnought, it's less. It's 1 11/16, and that's like impossible to play this kind of stuff. So finger picking guitars usually are 1 3/4 or 1 13/16. My Santa Cruz guitar is even a little wider than that. So but the neck is still much narrower, which means the strings are closer together. So that's one of probably about 6 elements that add up to making it trickier. The strings are closer together, so there's a good chance that you're going to be bumping into, you're going to kill notes unless you have more accurate finger placement. And really, that's going to be the biggest thing, is you have to be much more accurate with where you put your fingers on a steel string guitar than you do with nylon. You have to be close to the fret. On a nylon string guitar, you can be 1/3 of the way back and still get good tone, because you don't have to push down very hard. You get that far back on a steel string guitar, and it buzzes, unless I push really hard. Now I'm making it more difficult. I'm wearing myself out. So get your fingers to the frets, right up to the fret and right on the tip of your finger. So finger placement is really, really important. And hand position. I was talking about right hand position a little while ago too. It's really important that you play with essentially classical position, meaning a little gap underneath your fingers here. You can't really have the base of your knuckles touching the bottom of the neck, because now your fingers can't reach even like to the first string. So thumb should be low on the back of the neck, and just as far as that position. So if you play these on nylon strings and you come over here, the first thing you're gonna notice is the strings are close together and they buzz all the time and they squeak all the time. We're not gonna worry too much about squeaking. You can get elixirs or strings that have coatings on them that help solve that problem. But and so that's why I like to have people start with very easy exercises like what we have in this DVD set. It's beginning guitar pieces. Although there's a few little more advanced ones in there. There's an easy version of Greensleeves that is just playing the melody with a simple bass line. And the idea is make sure those notes come out crystal clear. And that the bass notes ring loud and clear, and that it doesn't sound like this. Don't let it sound like that. So slow and pay really close attention to every note ringing, independent finger motion with your hands. So I kind of strayed off that the differences there, I guess, or did I?
No, I think we did good.
Okay.
Yeah, and we did, in regards to classical, we did have a question from Thomas Black, who was asking really what the best way to mic a classical nylon string guitar would be. I'm assuming this is in regards to like a performance environment where you don't have an electric or output jack. So how would you place like the microphone while you're playing to capture the sound most effectively, even and with the ukulele as well, because those are nylon strings too.
Yeah, the microphones have to be pretty close to the guitar if you're going to do that, and you really need, you almost need recording level or recording style mics, Sennheisers or Neumanns or some things that are, it can be very difficult to get a good tone out of it, especially if you're trying to play with other instruments. Then you need like an amplified guitar. I mean, if you're going to play with a pick and you've got piano and other people playing with you. But when I've recorded, we usually have two mics on the guitar, kind of in a little cross pattern for a stereo signal, where the mic over here is pointing more towards the fingerboard and the other is pointing more towards the sound hole. But you know, I don't really have a lot of good answers for that as far as exact equipment to use or something. It's really going to depend on the hall you're in. There are some great places where you don't even need mics to, and the sound just carries. I remember seeing Julian Bream at Zellerbach Hall in Berkeley many years ago, and he may not have even been amplified at all, and it just filled the hall. That's probably wrong, but my memory was it sounded great, but he was only playing solo guitar. So yeah, I don't have probably a lot of information on that, unfortunately.
All right, well, that was good entry for sure. Okay. We have Scott here who is saying good afternoon, and he was wondering if the Mood for a Day lesson that we did, would that be considered like fingerstyle technique, or is that a classical piece?
That is, that's got much more classical stuff in it than fingerstyle. You know, like his other tune, Clap, has more ragtimey stuff in it. But Mood for a Day has the, you know, flamenco style strumming. With little percussion in it, and then the runs. Let me think about this. Oh yeah. So yeah, a lot of the stuff that happens in there, playing those scales. So one of the really important things to work on is also using your fingers alternating to play scales. Getting used to, and I really got a lot of work doing this when I was playing, oh, I left my Renaissance book over there. When I first started getting into Renaissance music, a lot of the pieces had fast scales in them. And there would be these little divisions that were variations on the melody. And it was absolutely essential that you had good control of playing scales rapidly with your middle and index fingers, usually leading with your middle. So to get through Mood for a Day, even that first run there, 2 notes on each string, but you really have to alternate fingers. In that case, I probably would start with my index because, let me think. Yeah. And so I would start with my index and then my middle for each the pair of notes on the 4th string, then on the 3rd, and then on the 2nd, and even on the 1st. So you do need to have lots of different ways of playing a scale or a run, but working on even just a G scale. Alternating fingers is a really, really useful exercise.
Awesome. And since we're talking kind of along the lines of alternating fingers, Bob Ring was asking if we have any exercises for big finger stretches. And then we also have Phil, who's ready with his 914 CE. So maybe we can give a couple of finger exercises that people can practice right now while they're live with you.
Sure. I guess I won't be able to hear them. So
no, unfortunately not. But we'll cheer them on.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I would do is just practice this alternating thing on like the first string. Rest your thumb on the sixth string right near where the fingerboard hits, or like on the sixth string right near the end of the fingerboard, and just practice. I think I even had this in a tip that went out recently, or maybe it hasn't gone out yet. I don't know. Work on alternating those fingers on the first string. Play 4 notes. Then the second string. Then the third string. And I'm going index, middle, I, M, I, M, I, M. So this is a good warm-up drill. One of the teachers at my store many years ago, Ben, would, every lesson, this is what I'd hear with his first lesson. He would get his student warmed up with this little type of thing, just walking your way down the strings, and then back up. And you were thinking about trying to get nice even tone and not have it sound like this, where those are all kind of like cut short. You want the notes to ring, and then you want to be able to do the same thing with different fingers, like your second, your middle, and your index. Your middle and ring fingers. And it does take a little practice, and especially on steel strings. Getting good tone out of your ring finger is pretty hard because it's just a little wimpier than your second finger. But so let's try that. Start off kind of slow, then go to the second string. Okay, let's start again now, but take it no breaks. To the second string, the third string. Now, we can bring your left hand into this and practice playing a scale along with it, like a chromatic scale. So now what I would do is play 4 notes starting on the first fret and the second string and the third string. And look at my left hand as I'm doing this. Barely any motion. It doesn't look like this. Okay, the whole thing should be almost stationary. And each finger just moves kind of independently. As I put down my second or third, my first is coming off, getting ready to move so that it's heading to the new note on the third string, let's say, without, before I've even finished this one. You don't want to do this. And then take your whole hand off and then move it all at once. You want to do this. Watch my first finger. And these are really good drills also to kind of get your flexibility. You can practice it backwards. And again, this is what your left hand should look like when you're doing this. So those are some of the warm-up drills and exercises I like to have students do to get good hand position and good tone and good coordination between the two hands.
Awesome. So we have a question that came through our support system that is saying, I'm basically a beginner and I would like to learn finger picking styles on the guitar. And he's asking for a good starting point, which I think is a challenge for a lot of our students right now, is where to start. Would this particular set, the steel string classical guitars, be a good start? Or is there, lessons on the site that we can recommend for where a basic beginner would want to kick off? We have the beginner's course, which is always a good starting point. But once we branch out from there, where's a good next step? Yeah.
For that, specifically for fingerpicking, the fingerpicking course is geared better for that. It's more built into like right hand technique than this DVD. This DVD is a little bit more along. This one really encourages reading music and helps you understand that. Now all of the songs that are in it are going to come with tablature as well as standard notation, but many of these pieces were kind of accumulated as part of the program called the Guide to Reading Music, which starts with some very easy reading. And I really recommend learning to read music for a lot of reasons, but one of them is even just to understand the rhythm of things. So I think the fingerpicking course that we have at TG and even a DVD set is really a good one for an absolute beginner, because it can take that and it gets very complicated. This one is a little bit different, more geared towards the playing things more properly, kind of. So this is a little bit more formal approach and methodical, I think, in terms of starting with some really easy things. Although in the first set we have a couple of more complicated pieces. There's a what is it? Oh, it's the Bach Minuet that requires the same type of alternating while you're playing scales. And that is just a fabulous piece for people to work on once you've gone through some of the easier pieces. Speaking of which, I hope everybody out there knows today's Bach's birthday, March 21st. And this is the other piece that's the more complicated piece in the DVD set. So Romanza is another piece that I like to have people play. You can start it as a beginner. But it's not a beginning piece. It's a piece that really requires a lot of interpretation and things. And those are the two kind of big bonus pieces included in this set. Anyway, but I think if somebody wants to go just straight into fingerpicking, I would. You really need a little bit of fingerpicking experience, just a little, to get the most out of this set, I think.
Very cool. And then driving it back into classical lessons, Jim56 posted on the forum asking what sort of classical lessons we have and recommend to play. And then he also asked if we had Grandfather's Clock for finger picking. Would Grandfather's Clock be considered kind of like a classical piece?
Absolutely, yeah. It's a steady alternating bass one. And see, I look at these all as really the same. I mean, everything you need to do to be able to play ragtime pieces is the same technique you need to play classical pieces. Grandfather's Clock I think we have a free, Grandfather's Clock is in a couple of different places at the site. And it's a piece that really meant, it kind of opened up doors for me that I didn't know were even there. And they were, it was because it was a song I remember hearing as a child singing in elementary school. And then I started listening to John Fahey, and I heard John Fahey play it. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. There's an alternating bass, and it's got this lively, jazzed up rhythm. It was, and so that is actually the song that opened up my world into taking a melody and making an instrumental out of it. Well, that's only a medium amount more complicated than this. So yeah, Grandfather's Clock is a great starting place as well for either of these, for heading into the classical world or into the ragtime fingerpicking world.
Very cool. And then we have Dick N, who's asking, what is a good way to memorize the notes going up and down the neck?
That is a completely different thing and really, really useful. And of course, I've got a whole package on that too, called Guitar Geography. But it is the real problem with the guitar neck, not the problem, but the mystery, I guess, is that it seems to have no rhyme or reason to like where notes are and things like that. And but if you just learn, and this is what I talk about in Guitar Geography, if you just look at the 6th and 5th strings as main reference points, start finding notes, spots that you know what they are. In the beginning, your only reference point is E. And if you're looking for a B on that string, you're going to go E, F, G, A, B. And it's going to take a while until you remember that B was at the 7th fret. Matter of fact, you may never remember that B is at the 7th fret. But, well, no, if you work on this, you will. But reference points are, you want to limit the number of frets that you have immediately memorized. If I put a finger down here and say, oh my God, I don't even know what note that is. Well, I do know what note that is, but it's because I related it to the one right above it. And that was the 9th fret here. I know is E. It's the same as the open E string. So the note I put down here was E flat. Now, that E at the 9th fret is one of the reference points I would have. Now, after all these years, I would have a lot of reference points. But you could start with just making sure you understand the names of all the open strings randomly, meaning know that B is here and A is here. And if I say, what's the note, what's the 3rd string? You want to get away from thinking 3rd string, E, A, D, G. You have to get instant access to that piece of info. Then you also want to make sure that you know that the 12th fret is where octaves are. 12 half steps in an octave. So all the notes at the 12th fret have the same names as the notes at that are open. They're just an octave higher. And you need to be able to think backwards as well as forwards, meaning you need to be able to go through the alphabet starting on any letter and never tripping up at G and A, and be able to think, okay, I'm going to start at D. You could practice this in your car. And just go forwards, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. Okay, not so hard, except don't get tripped up, D, E, F, G. What comes after G? And then, so G and A, you have to connect. It's a circle. You need to be able to do that same thing backwards, D, C, B, A, G, F, E, D. Starting on, I don't know why I picked D, but it was just because it's like right in the middle. But thinking forwards and backwards now gives you access to more notes based on your own reference point. So once you've got the 12, or based on a reference point, once you've got the 12th fret in good shape, the 5th and the 7th are the next ones. And now, so learn the notes at the 5th fret because they are almost all the same as the open strings. The notes at the 5th would be the same on every string except the 3rd string, where we'd have a C instead of a B. So that's how you start this, is you get things memorized by with certain points. The best thing, though, is to not have it really memorized at all, and it's to understand the relationship of maybe a note on the 3rd string and know where an octave from that would be. That it would be 12 frets away. Well, on the guitar, 12 frets can be every time you go from one string to the next at the same fret. You're going, how many frets? Everybody got that? Make it an interactive question. Oh, between the delay of this, never mind, can't wait. But from a note on the 6th string to the same fret on the 5th string is 5 frets because the strings are tuned 5 frets apart. So from here to here is 5, here to here is 5, that's 10. I know I need 2 more, and now I have an octave. And now I recognize this as notes out of a barred G chord, or out of the A family. I mean the E family. What am I thinking? Talking too fast, brain's not engaged. Learning the relationships between notes, especially learning to recognize octaves and fifths, knowing that the notes of a C chord, the 2 C's, give you octaves here. So if I want to know what note this is, or on the 5th fret here, if I know what this one is because I've got the 5th string down, 6th and 5th strings are the best place to start. And all that stuff's in the guitar geography course.
Awesome. And then we have a question specifically related to the DVD from Stephen Kohler, who's asking if we go into detailed teaching of how to properly play rest and free strokes.
So because I play with nails on steel string guitar, I rarely use rest strokes. And part of it is, now if you play without nails, which is totally okay, then rest strokes are going to make a bigger difference on the steel strings. But with nails, I really don't find rest strokes as powerful. Now, the reason you use them on nylon string guitar is it's really the only way you can get the biggest volume out of a note without it sounding terrible. And on steel strings, if I use big, heavy rest strokes, I'm driving the string into the fingerboard a little too much, and notice that tone was not very good. Now, but with nails on the steel strings, you have the control to be able to play a note very softly or very loudly. Now, on the nylon strings, you don't have that wide range of dynamics of getting the notes without without using rest strokes on them. But if I start using rest strokes up here, especially with my nails, I get terrible tone. So if you play with nails on steel strings, I recommend very few, if ever, rest strokes. The time I might use it would be if it's one note that I want to really come out, like right there. I can use one with my third finger, my ring finger down here, and that might be used at the end of a song if I wanted to have it big. But so I don't really address that too much in there because I think you rarely want to use rest strokes on steel strings. This is, of course, going to open it up to all kinds of controversy, I'm sure, but that's my take on steel strings. Rest strokes are not good unless you're playing without nails, which many people do.
So a follow-up question to that, I think, right now would be what the benefit of playing classical guitar on a steel string actually is versus, the tried and true method of a nylon.
Well, frankly, I think a lot of the pieces sound better. And for example, Bach. I'm playing it very hard there, just as an example. I wouldn't normally do that in that piece, but I wanted to show you a little dynamic range, and I would probably play it a little bit more medium. I might pick it up a little bit there. Anyway, I love the tone of songs, of pieces like that, and I played a little bit of Adelita before. Now, interesting little difference between those two pieces. Adelita was written by a nylon string guitarist, and typically played on them, Targa. And the Bach piece, Bach didn't write anything for the guitar anyway. And had he had a steel string guitar around in his day, he would not have objected to anybody playing this stuff on there. So pieces like this I think sound spectacular on the steel string guitar. And there's a history of some great players. And one of the person I admired most growing up, and until he passed away last year, was John Renbourn. And he played all kinds of pieces on steel strings that were Renaissance pieces, Baroque pieces, and even on electric guitar. He did this Bach Sarabande on electric guitar with a lot of vibrato and stuff. So I just think the pieces they take on a different kind of character and life with steel strings.
Awesome. And then when you're playing a steel string guitar, you use your nails more so than a nylon guitar. Is that correct?
No. Typically, people play nylon strings with nails all the time. Very few play without it. And the one real hazard with doing this on steel strings is I just totally lucked out in the nail department and have very hard nails. And I still have to file them. I've got a couple files sitting right there because I'm pretty sure I'm going to need one in just a minute if I keep playing much. But I also know people that have like fake nails, acrylic nails, and things like that, and they just get them done every couple of weeks. And those are things, because I'm not out performing every night like Tommy Emmanuel or somebody like that. I can manage with what I have, but most nylon string guitar players, their nails don't get as beat up by the strings because they're much softer and so they don't get scratched up as well. But I am never any place without emery boards like within reach, because the nails have to be in really good shape. So it is a bit of high maintenance.
Now, do you have any suggestions on maintenance? We have a question from D. Van Martin that was that noted actually seeing videos of James Taylor gluing on artificial nails. So he was
with
wondering
toxic
about that
stuff. Yeah, that video of him working on his nails is pretty interesting. And 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 John Renborn traveled around with ping pong balls that he would cut up with little nail scissors and use crazy glue to put them on. The biggest thing I'd say is it really takes a little bit of care almost every day. Like if you don't want them to get too long, you actually want to almost file them every day or every couple days to take off what grew like overnight. So, and that also helps keep them really strong. If you let them get too long and then you clip them or something, or take off, especially if you cut them, cutting them with clippers is terrible because it really weakens all the fibers in there. So I think probably the only time I may have even taken clippers to my right hand would be if something broke, and if I had one that was just, and I just needed to clean it up and sit it out for like a month while it was growing back. But yeah, you keep stuff like these around of different grits, and I know if I'm practicing hard, I couldn't go more than 10 minutes before I start feeling a little ragged edge, and I'll hear it first. I'll hear the tone and then I'll feel down there and say, oh, there's I gotta polish up that little corner and get it get it smoother, because you really need the edges. There's no way to be able to see this on here, but the edges have to be sharp. They can't be blunt. For example, again, if you cut them, you've left almost like a square edge on the nail, and it needs to be a point like a knife to be strong and effective. So yeah, I would say the biggest thing with nails is you have to kind of take care of them. Not maybe quite every day, but at least every other day.
Cool. And then we have a new question from Robert Mazzoli, and specific to classicists. He's asking whether we can address the sort of guitar body position, angle of the neck, support, some of the best ways to position while playing traditional classical pieces. Yeah,
sure. And it's good to hear from Rob, one of our lifer IGC folks. So hope all's well up there. So I have a footstool down here that looks like this. It's a really cool block. Many of you who've been to visit me have seen this thing. It lives in my studio, and it only weighs like about 3 ounces. It's pretty weird, and I can stand on this thing, and I'm not a small guy. But right now I've got my right foot on it, and for me I am able to keep the guitar in good shape. Now, some of the things you're looking for are that the neck cannot be parallel to the floor. Leo Kottke plays with his feet flat on the floor and the guitar like this, and you can barely even see my guitar right now, and manages to whip through what he's doing with not really having his hand in a position that is optimal for most people. So the neck has to be up higher so that your wrist is down below it. And the way I sit, it kind of angles away from my body a little bit. Like right now, this end is closer to the camera than this end. You can probably tell by the reflection of the lights over here. If I turn it, well, anyway, never mind. So it's angled a little bit up and a little bit out. I can only see the 6th string, so I don't have. You can't play the guitar and have a 3D view of the strings. So you can really only see the 6th string. So I'm sitting behind here and I can't see anything other than the 6th string. Of course, I can't see that far anyway. But still, this allows me to have my hand in really good position, and it's like the top part of my arm is pretty much parallel with my ribs. I'm not reaching out, or I'm not pulling it back like this. So my arm's kind of just hanging there, and that's where the neck fits at the length of my forearm. And pretty much from this angle, I can move all the way to the 12th fret and keep the same position. So the other choice is, of course, the left leg approach, where you now have, this gives you a much more secure feel for the guitar because it's anchored in more spots. It's touching both legs and my chest and my arm. So I have 4 spots keeping it stable. And this is the way classical guitar players usually sit. So this is totally okay too with steel strings. Now, another useful thing might be that even if you're sitting down, which usually you need to, consider playing with a strap. A strap will also help keep it balanced and supported, so that it's not moving around without your left hand. So I hope that helps a little bit, but it's kind of like everybody has to find what something that works for them, and it's going to be a little different depending on you and your guitar.
And since we're on the topic of classical guitar playing, how is this related to sort of some of the content that we've aggregated in this collection to help people start playing classical music if they've never been exposed to it before, or if they have some experience but want to take it to the next level, so to speak?
Yeah, I think part of my thinking with this was there are so many great pieces out there that you want to get to, but you can't start with this. How's it go? Wait a minute, let me think about that again. There we go. Although that's not as difficult as some others, but you really do have to ease into some of this. Like right there, notice the tone of what the notes I got was pretty good. Well, I'm not really worried about the tone anymore because I've spent a lot of time playing these relatively easier things, concentrating on tone and efficiency. That's a lot of what the biggest thing is too. So the plan here was really to get this, what I would consider volume 1 out with easy pieces, with a couple of bonus pieces that are a little bit more complicated, Romanza and the Minuet in G. Oh, which of course is not really Bach. I should have brought that out. It was discovered about 20 years ago. Anyway, that he'd sort of accumulated that one, or well, anyway, save that story for later. But so the plan is here that there will be a couple of follow-ups to this. Volume 2 will be intermediate pieces, and Volume 3 will start getting into what I would consider concert level pieces. The Bach Prelude, maybe Jesu. So it's to work your way up to that rather than starting right away with pieces that are going to be frustrating and discouraging, I guess. So it's to get rolling with good technique on easy stuff before we tackle the harder stuff. These Targa pieces will be in the intermediate volume.
So speaking of technique, like if someone's not interested in learning classical music specifically, what would be the benefit to them still, moving through these pieces and applying them to, say, other guitar skills that they might be more interested in learning? Yeah,
if they wanted to get to advanced fingerpicking, this would be a great place to start. The same type of thing, starting with a piece like is biting off way more than most people can chew, and is dangerous, because if you really just start working on a piece that is that difficult, especially if you're a beginner or just getting out of the beginning stages, it'll never really get to its optimal sound. You have to walk before you run and crawl before you walk and things like that. So it really is good to go back to kind of the basics if you want to get into advanced fingerpicking. Now that may not look too difficult, but getting that tone out of it, that's Heliotrope Bouquet by Scott Joplin, in case some of you may not know, but it's something that requires the same mentality as playing a classical piece. And really important thing about the classical pieces, like Romanza is a great example. In the lesson on Romanza, I talk about, and I'm probably even have a demonstration of this, of the difference between just playing the notes, What do you think? All the notes loud and clear, and dull and boring. There was no life in that piece. Well, you have to be able to play the notes. You have to be able to play the notes loud and clear. And this is part of the path of getting there, before you can take them and make music out of it. So whether it's classical or ragtime or blues you can afford to be a little sloppier in, because it's kind of an important part. If you're playing with a slide, you want to hear some of the noise of the slide. But you really have to have these basic things down, and then be able to get the pieces, get the notes first, and then work on really making music out of the notes.
Cool. And then speaking of, sort of doing things that you don't really want to do, but kind of have to do to advance your guitar playing, we have Steve Behrens, who's asking, do you think it's better to learn chords and different voicings up the fretboard by drilling them or in context of songs? He's saying that he sees basic chords, he plays the ones which tend to be in position around the first fret. Mm-hmm. But should he just get into the habit of learning these chords, just for the sake of learning them in the higher fretting positions?
If I'm kind of understanding the question right, I definitely have a thought on that. And that would be almost as you're thinking about putting together a second guitar part for something. If you're just playing a song by yourself and singing it or something, you need the beef and the fullness of playing them open. If I'm playing a song that's G's and C's, well, I could play the G up here and the C down here as bar chords. But that would make a better second guitar part to kind of beef up what we had. So have a whole nother course out there on called Lead Secrets, Triads. And what I would typically do is use just 3-string reductions of chords based in our two main bar chord families, E and A, and then a third bonus one, D, and learn what they become as they move further up the neck. So if you know, for example, that an A chord can be played as a bar of the 5th in the E family, when somebody else is playing their A down here, you could come up to the 5th fret and play just the top 3 strings of that and add in a little bit more color and texture, especially, so they're down here strumming this A chord. Well, if I just come up here and strum this A bar chord, I haven't really added a lot to the big picture. But if I just play the top notes of this from this E reduction, you're hearing one guitar do this, and you're hearing this. And it changes to D maybe. Now, this wouldn't work really as a first guitar part, but these 3-string reductions in the E family, the A family, and the D family, and knowing what they are at different places. So take a very easy song like Brown Eyed Girl, with the right rhythm, and look at other ways you can do it. So that's what I like to do as that. So it absolutely is good to know where the E family becomes each different chord, the A family and the D family. And again, we've got a set of lessons on that over at TG as well.
Cool. And then another simple question is, what about your opinion on thumb picks? I know you've used them in a few of your lessons.
And I wish I had one sitting here right now because of just that question. I don't. I have about a dozen thumb picks. I have one I like, and it's like all the rest of them don't fit me very well. They're like too tight, and I use a thumb pick in particularly only one or two songs. I would typically use one, and it's because now if you play without nails, a thumb pick is a really good thing because then you'll get a little extra punch out of the bass, and that could be really cool. But the time I use it now, and I did use a thumb pick for many years, kind of exclusively. But you have less control over the tone with the pick, and I'll tell you the songs that I use it for in just a second. So an advantage of playing with your nails is I can play this bass note really hard with my nail, or I can play it very softly with the side, just using the flesh, and I could get lots of different shades of that. Now with a thumb pick, you can't get the softer shade. You have a little bit of control over the volume, but not as much because you're not really in contact with the string. But the two songs I play that I almost always want to have the pick in my hand, but because I don't want to rip up my thumb pick, are like even here, can't play hard enough. So when I play that, I want it to be, now Steve, of course, plays that with a pick. And then uses his fingers along with it. So he's got some really good technique that I talk about in a few songs. The Greg Lake song, The Sage, has that. The other one that I like to use the thumb pick in is this. I don't know if you can remember it. There we go. Anyway, when I play Pipeline, I like to have a thumb pick in there just for the extra oomph in it. But yeah, so I'm a fan sometimes with thumb picks, but not exclusively.
Cool, and we have our thanks from Steve on that last question. So he's saying he's got to find some buddies now so he can practice with.
There you go.
We have the community on TG for that, right?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how exactly people get together. I don't know that it's. I don't think Skype is quite ready to handle like people playing in real time together. But I know that's something that we're working on. It'd be really cool to have that feature at TG, to have the community hangout sort of thing. But
very cool
in the future.
So I don't see any other questions. Did we address Rick's picks query about Catavina?
Yeah, Cavatina. Let me see. So there were a couple of questions that came out in the forum. One of them, Willem had asked about the 3 and 4 string chords, which I sort of talked about a little while ago. So I hope that's the answer to it, because he was asking about whether the leads, a good way to play lead. And I like to start with the chord shapes so like if I was going to play a lead to Brown Eyed Girl, a minute ago you saw me just play the chords. Well, I might use those as a little skeleton of, I'm picturing this. And right there, I just had those same pictures in my head as I was messing around with those notes. And you should have been able to hear that kind of followed the chord progression. So yeah, these 3-string triads are really, really important. So Rick's question was about Cavatina, was having a hard time in the measure...
Let's measure 5.
Yeah.
The 3rd string, and how to get those clean notes.
And it really, the root of the question is how to get a whole bunch of notes clean in the bar at the same time. And for most people, most people can't put down a 6-string bar, just slap it down and use the same one for all situations and be guaranteed that all 6 notes are going to be clean. Now right here, I just kind of randomly put it down, and let's see what I have. And I knew that was going to be the case because right the way I have it positioned, I knew the 4th string is in a weak spot on my finger. So if I need the 4th string, I have to adjust it maybe down. And now I can check the rest of them. Now I'm missing the 3rd string. Okay, maybe up was the answer. Up is generally the answer because you have a lot more strength and leverage against your thumb here than you do up here. So when I see people make a bar that looks like this, like they're barely touching the 6th string, oh, let's see what that's going to sound like. Really bad. But if I move it way up and get it and keep my finger much straighter, I'll get much better sound. Now I also have my thumb kind of on the side, not flat like this. I've got my thumb, you know, it's more this side of my thumb that is touching the back of the neck, and I'm not sure if that makes everybody's hand is a little different. This thumb's been dislocated a couple of times, and so it has some quirks with it. But I guess the point I'm trying to get at here is that you need to have the bar be flexible according to what notes you exactly need. In one of the Antonio Lauro waltzes, it must be number 4. There we go. Yep, it is that one. There's a spot where it ends with a chord that is an open E and then 5 notes at the 1st fret. And on a steel string guitar, this is killer because you can't just slap it up like this because I need to hear the open E. The chord has to sound like this. Look at that, my 2nd string sucked. So when I recorded that, I do have a video up of me playing that. Yes, I do. And if I'm really worried about the tone on that, I'm gonna put the death grip on that, and luckily not have to hold it for very long. But that's one of the most difficult. There it is. Luckily nothing else has to ring, but the 2nd string is still a little suspect. So bar placement and be willing to move it. If I'm going from a G7 chord to a C7 chord, I'm moving the bar. Right there I didn't do it. And I don't have good tone on the 5th string. I need to move the bar down to put the 5th string in a stronger spot of my finger. So on the G7 chord, where I've got my bar right now, right now the 5th string is not good, but I don't need it because I've got this note, I've got the D on above it. But at the end, when it goes to C7, I'm going to move the bar down a little bit and get better tone out of them. So the bars have to be able to be adjusted for whatever situation it is in, I think. Okay, so that's the story on bars. And then we had a question that I actually, that I can't demonstrate very well. And it was Hydro Man asking about Muriel Anderson's ability to play harmonics on a chord. Let me think. Yeah, I'm gonna make a fool of myself here. But I do want to talk about artificial harmonics because that's a really useful thing. And we're probably getting close to running out of time. So let me, but Muriel had a way of playing a chord down here and then using her right hand to outline. Okay, never mind. To outline it, I might go practice that. To outline it and get the whole chord as a harmonic. There we go. That was closer. Anyway, but what I do want to talk about is a technique for artificial harmonics where you're doing it completely with your right hand. And so come to the 12th fret, put your 1st finger, your index finger, almost lock it straight. Touch the 12th fret exactly above the fret, and then try to play that note with your ring finger. And that'll let you play a harmonic on any note. I could play an A minor chord down here now and move my finger starting on the 12th fret, the 5th string, but now I have to go to the 14th, and then the 14th again, and the 13th. Now I have, you know, a way to play any note as a harmonic. You could practice coming up the E string. Play E. Oh, there we go. F, F sharp, G, and you just have to keep moving. Keep your eyes on your right hand because those notes, you got to make sure that this lands right above the fret. So artificial harmonics can be a cool thing. You could, let's see, I'm going to be rusty on this, but let me see anyway. There we go. We'll try it again. Too many things to think about. Anyway, that may be a part of the lesson we have going on with While My Guitar Gently Weeps somewhere down the line. I still, something I started months ago and got sidetracked with Christmas tree injuries and a few other things. So, okay, so anything else, or should we wrap up with some of the any other details on the set that we should give people, or what do you think, Jamila?
Yeah, I think everybody should be seeing the offer for the classical guitar DVD set and the bonus. So let's talk a little bit about sort of what they'll get with that. I know one of the offers that we have on the table today for being on the webinar is that they get to join us in another live cast just like this after they've gone through the material a little bit, and maybe they have questions. We can work with them in, you know, a kind of fun environment like this and get them sort of moving forward on their classical guitar skills.
Absolutely. So that would be really fun. We could schedule that maybe like about a month from now, so everybody's had a few weeks to mess around with stuff, or maybe a little bit later or something, and kind of revisit it. And maybe we could make it even a little bit more interactive in the Hangout style or something, where I could even see people doing stuff. I don't know. Maybe I might have just put us in big trouble, but who knows? So.
We can make it work.
Okay. Okay.
For sure. So yeah, just go ahead and share a little bit more about, you know, the piece as we wrap up here, and
sure,
sort of some of the bonuses and benefits that they'll get from adding it.
As I said, about a quarter or maybe a third of these things in volume 1 here were things that I that I kind of incorporated into this other package of stuff called the Guide to Reading Music, which is like 6 hours worth of stuff that really take you through. So in this DVD, I refer to that a few times, and we are making that available for the first time outside of the Target program to anybody that buys the DVD for really cheap, for like half of what it would cost, even just as an individual thing at TG. So we'd really like you to consider picking, adding that in as well if you're not already up on reading music. But this DVD is about 4.5 hours worth of material in just the beginning stuff, then like another hour and a half on the bonus disc with the minuet and romanza. So it could, depending on where you are music wise, or skill and ability wise, this could keep you busy for a year easily. But anyway, so it's like my favorite pieces of this level, and many of these. There's a really, actually, one of my favorites in here is a thing called 6 Easy Pieces, that are pieces that came out of this book. A few of them did. This book was like huge in my life. The World's Favorite Solos, number 43, and it has great pieces for sight reading in there, and that's kind of what this is a lot of what inspired this, was some very easy pieces in here. Let me see if I can find one. There's a waltz by Carulli. I think this is even in there. Nope, this one's in C, but little pieces like that it would be great if you could get to the point where you could sight read something like that. And this is how I actually my sight reading got pretty good, because when I was young, this book, I would sit down with it and just flip through it and go from song to song. Here's another Carulli one. I'm like, oh, it looks familiar. So these are the types of pieces that are in this, and they will really improve your playing and open up the doors to reading music much better as well. So that's what we have in this DVD set. And I guess we're running a special for like today, if you pick it up on as part of this, right, Jamila?
Yes, we do have our introductory offer. So the entire set is only $67, and then they have the offer for the exclusive Guide to Reading Music series to help further their classical guitar playing. And then they also get a bonus that is offered nowhere else through the collection, except for right here on this webinar, where they get to spend some more quality time with us.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say, wait, what is that? I forgot about it. No, that was, yeah. No, and you know what? This, as some of you might remember out there who've been around for a long time, we used to do these live things even once a month for a while. I think there's like about 15 of them going back from about 4 or 5 years ago, when my founding buddy Matt and I would sit here and just goof off and have fun with people and answer questions and things, and it was really a blast. And those are all still up at TG. I'll make them easier to find sometime soon, because they really it was a lot of fun. And I know that I hope people get a lot out of this, because this is what I love to be doing is helping guitar players get improve their skills and knowledge and making their musical lives better. So I really want to thank everybody for joining us here today. It looks like we had well over, looks like a lot of people from, I can barely see the screen up there, but looks like we had well over 100 people join us or so. And I guess that's it. We're ready to sign off, and this will be available to watch in perpetuity, probably, right?
Yep, we'll be sharing it as soon as it's uploaded to YouTube.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm ready to sign off then.
Yep, we're good. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks. And I guess I just have to figure out how to do this. It looks like I hit stop broadcast.
Yeah, bye.
Thanks, everybody. So long.